I stopped sending money to my parents, and my dad's face went white. What money? He asked. That question shattered everything. Because for the last year, I'd been wiring $5,000 every single month to save their home. And they never saw a cent. Tell me where you're listening from so I know I'm not alone in this. From the outside, we looked perfect. Sunday roasts, framed smiles, matching jumpers in our Christmas photos. But perfection is easier to photograph than to live. My name's Eloise Hartwell. I'm 32, the quiet daughter, the one who learned early that keeping the peace sometimes meant swallowing your own voice. Margot, my older sister by 2 years, was the golden one. Teachers praised her, neighbors boasted about her, and my parents wore her success like a badge of honor. My dad, Graham, ran our house the way he ran his old pub. Every opinion had to pass through him first. Mum, gentle but worn down, spent years softening his pride into apologies no one asked for. When the recession hit, their mortgage slipped behind. I'd just started at an architecture firm, barely stable myself, but I told Mum I'd help until they caught up. $5,000 a month. Quietly, responsibly. Dad refused online banking. He didn't trust screens with his money. So I wired everything to Margot's account. She promised to deliver it in cash or check. Said it made things easier. I believed her because believing her was what we all did. Over time, those transfers became routine, like paying a bill for peace. Each month, I sent the money and waited for a thank you that never came. When Dad mentioned the mortgage being under control, I felt a small warmth, thinking I'd helped. Margot would text, handled, and that was it. Still, something always felt off. The last time I visited, the house looked more tired than before. Paint peeling, the fridge humming too loudly. Mum smiled through it the way she always did. Margot's helping us manage things, she said. I wanted to believe it. I really did. That night, while Dad turned up the evening news and Margot scrolled through her phone, I sat at the same table I'd grown up at, staring at the family photo above the fireplace. For smiles, one truth missing. If I'd looked closer, maybe I'd have seen what was coming. The cracks already running through our perfect picture. Dinner that night felt like every one before it, too polite to be real. The table was set with the good plates that only came out on holidays. Mum's rosemary chicken filled the air, the same scent I'd loved as a child, back when silences hadn't yet learned how to bruise. Dad poured himself another glass of wine, looked around the table like a man inspecting a stage, then smiled in Margot's direction. Your sister really sorted it out, he said proudly. She's got instinct, ambition. He looked at me when he said it, but the smile wasn't for me. I felt it like a splinter under the skin, familiar, sharp, impossible to ignore. I'm happy for her, I said, the way I'd said it my whole life. Mum nodded absently, reaching for the mashed potatoes. Her hand trembled slightly. Dad chuckled, adding, all on her own, too. No handouts. The air changed. The clink of his glass against the table sounded louder than it should have. I could have smiled and let it go the way I always did. Instead, I leaned back in my chair and heard my own voice, low but clear. Then I'll stop sending you money. The room froze. Even the hum of the fridge seemed to pause. Mum's spoon hung midair. Margot's fork slipped and hit her plate with a dull scrape. Dad blinked once, twice, before his expression broke. What money? He asked. His tone wasn't angry. It was confused. Sincere. That was the worst part. I met his eyes. The $5,000 I've been wiring to Margot every month for you and Mum since last April, he frowned. You've been what? Mum looked at Margot, her face draining of color. Margot? Margot straightened in her chair, her voice brittle. She's exaggerating. There were delays. Some months she sent it late. Every month, I interrupted quietly. The first of each one. I have the confirmations. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was surgical. It cut. Dad turned to Margot again. We never saw a cent. Margot's jaw tightened. You don't understand. There were expenses. Investments. What kind of investment costs £60,000 and leaves you with nothing to show? I asked. Her eyes flashed. You wouldn't get it, Eloise. You never believe in anything unless it's safe. Believing in family shouldn't be unsafe, I said. Mum's eyes filled, her voice trembling. Margot, is it true? Margot looked away. It's complicated. The steam from the food had gone cold. I stood up, pushing my chair back slowly. Then I guess it's her problem now. Dad's hand gripped the edge of the table. He looked at Margot again, but she wouldn't meet his eyes. And in that single breath between truth and denial, I knew the house had just changed forever. That night, the house stayed awake. Every wall seemed to breathe with us, restless and heavy. I lay in my old room, staring at the ceiling, tracing the faint glow of the plastic stars I'd stuck there when I was 16. Down the hall, voices murmured. Mum crying softly, Dad pacing. Margot's door stayed shut. I turned on my lamp and opened my laptop. The habit was automatic now. Check the payments, the transfers, the statements. Each line stared back at me like an accusation. 5,000 on the first of every month. My own digital fingerprints on a crime I hadn't meant to commit. 60,000 in total, gone. The next morning, Dad sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. Mum stood by the window, still in her dressing gown, coffee gone cold. She says it's tied up in something, Mum whispered. A company? A company doesn't eat mortgage payments, I said. It eats trust. Dad's jaw flexed, eyes red. We'll talk to her when she wakes up. But Margot didn't wake up. She was already gone. Her car missing from the drive. Her room empty except for a perfume cloud that lingered like a lie. A single sticky note sat on her dresser. Don't overreact. I'll fix it. I stared at the words until they blurred. She's not fixing anything, I said. She's running. Mum began to cry again. Small, broken sounds. Dad grabbed his coat, muttering something about finding her. I caught his arm. Wait. You can't chase her without proof. Let me handle this. He looked at me like he didn't know whether to trust me or himself. Then he nodded once. That day I did what Margot never expected. I worked the problem like a blueprint. I started with the structure. Every transaction, every date, every message. Then the weak points, where the money changed hands. Each transfer confirmed. Margot's account every time. Evan came over that evening, my laptop glowing between us. You're digging deep, he said quietly. I have to, I replied. This isn't just about the money. It's about how long she thought she could lie to me and get away with it. He nodded. What's your next step? The bank, I said. And then a solicitor. At the branch, the manager frowned as she looked through the records. These were all redirected, she said, pointing to Margot's name. Account holder used the funds for private transfers. Looks like another intermediary. To who? I asked. She hesitated. A man named Kieran Walsh. I felt something inside me lock into place. A name, a direction, a trail. When I walked out of that bank, the cold January air hit my face like a vow. I pulled my coat tighter and whispered to myself, you wanted to play with trust, Margot? Fine. Let's see how much truth costs. 3 nights later, the doorbell rang just after sunrise. I was in the kitchen with Mum, both of us running on little sleep and too much quiet. Dad was still upstairs, sorting through papers he no longer trusted. When I opened the door, a man stood on the porch. Jeans, hoodie, the kind of smile people practice in the mirror. Morning, he said easily. You must be Eloise. I'm Kieran. The name landed like a stone. Margot's Kieran? He chuckled. I guess you could call me that. Behind me, I heard Dad's footsteps, slow but heavy. He came to stand beside me, his voice low. What are you doing here? Kieran held up a small folder like a peace offering. Just clearing up a misunderstanding. Margot asked me to drop these off. Proof of our investment. Mum appeared in the doorway, pale and trembling. Investment? Kieran flashed his grin again. Startup work. We're building an app connecting local artisans with clients. Scalable, forward-thinking. You know how it is. I stepped aside. Show us. He entered like he owned the place, spreading out glossy printouts across the table. Mock-ups, fake charts, random buzzwords. Phase 1, projected growth, beta launch. Not a single number added up. Dad flipped through the pages, face tightening with each turn. This is nonsense, he said. Kieran's smile faltered. Every big thing starts small. 60,000 pounds small? I shot back. He looked at me, still pretending calm. You've been talking to Margot. No, I said. I've been talking to the bank. The air shifted. Mum clutched the back of a chair. Dad's breathing grew rough. Kieran leaned on the counter, casual again, but his eyes were sharp. You don't understand, he said. She wanted this. She believed in me. And you let her believe, I said. Because it paid your rent. Before he could answer, the sound of tires crunching on gravel filled the silence. I turned to the window. Margot's white sedan pulled into the drive. She stepped out, sunglasses on, though the sky was gray. The door opened and there she was. Hair perfect, coat too expensive, smile practiced. When she saw Kieran, her expression cracked. What are you doing here? Kieran's voice softened instantly. Babe, I told you I'd fix it. Her jaw tightened. You weren't supposed to come here. Dad's voice was quiet but deadly. You took your sister's money. You lied to us. Margot's eyes flicked between us. It's not what you think. Then explain it, I said. Because 60,000 disappeared, the mortgage fell behind, and somehow he's driving a new car. She looked at Kieran. You said we'd double it in a year. His shrug was careless. Plans change. Plans? Dad's fist hit the table so hard the glasses rattled. You stole from your own family. Margot flinched, but still clung to the illusion. It's not stealing if it's an investment. We just needed time. Mum's voice broke. We skipped our payments because we trusted you. The silence afterward was the kind that swallows sound. I took a step closer to Kieran. So what's your real job? He smirked. I'm an entrepreneur. Funny, I said. Your last business owes back child support. His face twitched. Margot turned toward me, shocked. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages, the woman with the toddler who'd knocked on our door yesterday. She's been looking for you, Kieran. For him. Margot's hand went to her mouth. You lied to me. He sighed like a man tired of drama. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing, I said. Dad moved around the table, standing toe-to-toe with him. You're leaving this house now. Kieran's smile vanished completely. You can't stop her from seeing me. She's an adult. Margot's voice was shaking. I'm not going anywhere with you. He reached for her arm and instinct kicked in. I stepped between them. Don't touch her. The sound of sirens grew louder outside. Kieran froze, eyes narrowing. What did you do? Just returning the favor, I said. I called the police an hour ago. They're very interested in where the money went. He backed toward the door as flashing lights painted the walls red and blue. 2 officers entered. Kieran Walsh, one asked. Kieran tried to laugh. This is a mistake. But his voice broke when they cuffed him. Margot sank into a chair, her entire body shaking. Dad leaned against the counter, pale and silent. Mum cried into her hands. As they led Kieran out, he turned to me, his voice a whisper meant to cut. You think you've won? There's always another version of me out there. I met his eyes. Then I hope she finds someone like me, too. The door shut behind him. The house exhaled for the first time in months. 2 weeks later, the police called. They'd found evidence of multiple scams. 5 women, same story, same promises. Kieran had pleaded guilty. The prosecutor wanted Margot's testimony to strengthen the case. At first, she refused. I can't face him again, she whispered. You already did, I told her. And you survived it. In court, Margot sat beside me. She spoke softly but clearly, describing how Kieran convinced her to invest, how he'd used my transfers as seed money. Her hand shook, but her voice held steady. When Kieran tried to look at her, she didn't look back. When the verdict was read, 3 years in prison, 18 months without parole, the room went still. No applause, no celebration. Just relief. Dad's hand found mine under the table. Mum sobbed quietly beside him. Margot let out a breath that sounded like surrender. As the bailiff led Kieran away, his last glance was met with nothing. We walked out of that courthouse into cold, bright daylight. For the first time, it didn't sting. It felt clean. Later that night, back home, I stood in the back garden holding a small box. Photos, old receipts, a few notes he'd written. Margot stood next to me, lighter in the shoulders than I'd ever seen her. Are you sure you want to do this? I asked. She nodded. It doesn't mean anything now. I struck the match. The flames caught, curling through the paper, turning everything he'd touched into smoke. We watched it rise into the January sky until nothing was left but ash. Margot whispered, he took so much from me. I looked at her. Then make sure he never gets another inch. By spring, she'd found a small job at an office downtown. Mum tended her garden again. Dad fixed the railing on the porch he'd ignored for years. The silence that used to hurt now felt almost gentle. One afternoon, Margot came to me with a small envelope. Inside was a photo of us as kids at the county fair. Missing teeth, sticky fingers, laughing like we didn't know what betrayal meant. On the back, she'd written, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it." I didn't say anything. I just hugged her. For once, the house didn't need words to stay standing. The weeks after the trial felt strange, like the air inside the house had been rewired. Mum started leaving the curtains open again, sunlight spilling across the kitchen tiles. Dad took long walks in the morning, no longer carrying that tightness in his shoulders. And Margot, she didn't try to perform anymore. No perfect hair, no expensive perfume, no excuses. Just her, quieter, humbler, still finding her footing. She found work as an office assistant downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but she said it felt honest. Every evening she came home with a packed lunchbox and new lines on her hands, the kind that came from effort instead of guilt. Sometimes I'd catch her sitting in the garden with Mum, planting herbs. The same rosemary Mum once used to season the chicken that started everything. One night, Dad sat beside me at the table while I went through some bills. I think we made her this way, he said softly. We kept calling her special until she thought she couldn't fail. I looked at him. We all played our part. But we're fixing it now. He nodded, exhaling. I'm proud of you, Eloise. It hit harder than I expected. Maybe because it was the first time he'd said it without comparing me to anyone else. Later, Margot joined us, carrying 3 mugs of tea. We'll be okay, she said, half to herself, half to us. For the first time in years, I believed her. The house was finally quiet, but not the kind of quiet that hides pain. This was a different silence, the kind built on truth. A month later, I packed my suitcase for Edinburgh. A new job, a new start. The morning light poured through the kitchen windows as Mum folded laundry and Dad read the paper like old times. Margot walked me to the car, her sweatshirt sleeves pushed up, a faint smile on her face. "You're really leaving," she said. "It's time," I answered. She slipped an envelope into my hand. A photo of us as kids, holding candy floss, cheeks sticky with sugar. On the back, she'd written, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to see what's worth keeping." As I drove away, I looked once in the rearview mirror. The house looked smaller, but lighter somehow. Family doesn't break you unless you let it. If this story hit close to home, share yours in the comments and subscribe for more.